remember a year ago reading the comments from the chief, I think it was the chief man in charge of the BBC, and he in England, and of course they have immense influence around the world in terms of news coverage. The BBC, and he was asked, why aren't you as critical? Somebody had the boldness to ask him this in an article that they wrote about this problem. They said, why aren't you as critical of Muslims as you are of Christians? And he said, well, we do have, I'm paraphrasing now, but this is what he said. He said, we do have a double standard because basically the Muslims will blow us up and the Christians won't. And the Christians have
we prefer not to be blown up.
Yes,
right.
But he used the expression, the Christians have broad shoulders. In other words, we can levy criticisms at the Christians and get away with it because we know that they are they're not going to retaliate against us. And so, I mean...
well, maybe we ought to have a wing of our faith that takes an Old Testament approach to persecution.
Well, maybe so. Who knows? But maybe so. But the point is that here I was a little bit surprised that the head of the BBC would not even he would not even flinch in acknowledging that yes, we do have a double standard. Christians have broad shoulders here, and the Muslims are so sensitive that we have to treat them differently.
Well, I know this isn't the topic we're going to discuss,
right.
But let me just add to this. We've all marveled at these political alliances being made in Europe and even here in the United States between liberal, very left-wing political parties on the one hand and Islamists on the other. And you would think, well, I'm sure the head of the BBC is a very liberal guy, and yet here he's more interested in defending Islam than you would think he would be. And the only explanation I can come up with is they both have the same opponent. They both have the same enemy that they despise, and it's Judeo-Christian civilization.
Right.
Now, they come at it from widely different worldviews, but they have this, in some cases, hatred that they share, and we are the brunt of that.
That's interesting. Talking to Gary Bauer. Gary, what's your website and what's there?
It's ouramericanvalues.org, and you can find postings on things going on in Washington that will probably make you physically ill, as well as some information to help you win debates with your liberal neighbors, and you can sign up for a daily report I do on a variety of issues, including Christian persecution.
Gary, let's talk about what's happening in Washington right now the last few days and what's likely to happen in the next few weeks in terms of our economic policies that our government adopts. Without putting our listeners to sleep and without making some of them so angry they want to, overeat at lunch, can you explain what just happened in the last 24 to 48 hours?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you were very unfair there, Tim, when you said I can't put your listeners to sleep.
Stay awake, people.
I fell asleep this morning trying to explain it to my wife, so I can only imagine what the effect is on the
Honey,
listener.
get your face out of the oatmeal. I'm trying to explain to you the fiscal cliff.
Look, the bottom line is that a partial deal was reached just on the tax argument, and the argument over spending was delayed for 2 months, and we'll see what happens in that. On the tax part of it, the Bush tax cuts were preserved for families making less than $400,000 a year. And, of course, that's the overwhelming majority of American families. Those tax cuts expired for those making above $450,000 a year. Now, before anybody listening applauds, if you're a typical American, you are going to see higher taxes because the other thing that happened is that the Social Security tax, which was lowered for 2 years, has been returned to its normal rate. So a typical family is going to experience $1,000 of higher taxes because of that. And then all the Obama tax increases required by Obamacare went into effect on January 1. And that's going to hit all kinds of things, and people will certainly feel that.
Okay, but here's the part. I don't know. I think I know what I'm supposed to think in looking at the vote yesterday, but this split up the Republicans. And so I'm trying to figure out, are there good guys and bad guys in what happened with this vote? Because Speaker Vayner, for instance, voted for this legislation, but only 30%, I believe, of his own party in the House followed his lead. So, and Eric Cantor, the House Majority, what is he called?
Yeah, I think he's the whip.
House Majority Leader.
Yeah.
I think you have the Speaker and then the House Majority Leader and then the whip. Anyway, the point is, what the argument was by Eric Cantor and the 70% of Republicans in the House of Representatives who voted against this legislation, they said, listen, yes, you would acknowledge that you're voting to keep taxes from going up on people, on most all Americans with this vote, but this vote raises taxes on people making $400,000 a year or more without having any cuts to the federal government spending, and we're principally opposed to that. That gets complicated, and it's a hard thing to communicate to the general public, because that like me, and I'm scratching my head going, which way should I feel?
Yeah,
about this?
Look, this is really tough, and I'm actually sort of worried here that this is going to feed into the idea that Republicans are worthless and they won't do what they say they're going to do, and why didn't they just hold the line? And I urged them. I signed a letter with a couple of dozen other conservative leaders several weeks ago urging them to hold the line. But even though I signed that letter, I also recognize that the president held all the high cards in this. I mean, the only thing Republicans control is the House of Representatives. And for the average American, they were being told without ceasing by the media, as well as the president, who appears to be everywhere, that if we went over this cliff and you, Mr. and Mrs. America, experienced a major tax hike on January 1, it would be because of these vicious, extremist Republicans who are making your taxes go up because they don't want to agree to allowing rich people's taxes go up.
Well, hey, that sells.
It sure does.
That the way you just described it, it was the way it was painted in the media, and it's tough to it's tough for a congressional aide to get on the phone and talk to Joe Smith back home and explain to him why they didn't so.
Oh man,
Right.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. So I see the vote split that you're referring to in Republican ranks. I don't see the ones that voted for it to be so-called rhinos, Republican in names only, and the other ones are the good guys. I think it was people that said, man, we're in a horrible position. What is the best way to get out of this and get to a part of the battlefield where we might be in better shape? And I think many of these guys feel that the debate over the debt ceiling will be a stronger position to be in, because they can now say, look, we let taxes go up for the wealthy, so quit bringing that up. Let's get to what we really need to do, which is cut the out-of-control spending.
This is going to be interesting to see. Gary, Ray and I were talking off air, and we were, maybe this is not the reality, but you tell me why it isn't the reality. I think the reality is that the Republicans and the Democrats are both going to raise the debt ceiling, because not to raise the debt ceiling would probably cause a calamity internationally and in our country economically. And so, now don't misunderstand me. I'm not for unlimited spending, but if you don't raise the debt ceiling, then you're going to have all kind of problems that you can't imagine. Now, if you so to say not raise for the Republicans to be able to use raising the debt ceiling as leverage for spending cuts with Obama, I think Obama and the Democrats just laugh at that idea because they know that the Republicans are not going to vote to not raise the debt ceiling because of what would happen if if we defaulted. And I know that we don't have to default, technically speaking. The 40, you could get by on 60% of what the government spends today, but you understand what I'm saying?
I do, and that your analysis is exactly right. This won't be easy. But look at the debate we were just having again. It was a debate about, well, they don't want millionaires to pay more in taxes, and they're willing to send our economy off of a cliff. They're so committed to that. And Republicans thought, oh, man, we're losing this. Get to the debt limit, and Republicans are going to be able to say, okay, we let that tax hike go in. Now, here we have this debt limit. We will vote to raise it. But for every dollar we vote to raise that debt ceiling, we are going to require the president to agree to $1 of budget cuts because every American knows this budget is out of control. And many of them feel it's going to be hard for the president to reintroduce taxes into this. We just went through that.
Right.
This is about debt. Most Americans don't want the debt ceiling raised because they just don't like the sound of that. And if Republicans are saying, well, we'll do it, but only if we stop this out-of-control spending,
okay.
A lot of us feel we can win that debate.
This is clearing up for me now here. So whether you like or don't like the fact that taxes were increased on people making $450,000, was it individuals 400 and families 450 or something like that?
I believe that's right, yes.
Okay, whether you do or don't agree with that, the fact of the matter is that's settled.
Yes.
Okay, so there's no point in revisiting that. So what you're saying here now is that President Obama has been going around for a long time now, rich pay their fair share, rich pay their fair share, rich pay their fair. That's all he's been doing, this class warfare junk and stuff like that. Okay, well, all right, you got what you wanted, all right? So he can't, what you're saying is he can't talk about that anymore. So it's you think the Republicans are about to call his bluff, because I think he's been bluffing. This is me personally speaking here, Tim Wildman. I think he's been bluffing because I don't think President Obama wants to cut squat, except maybe defense. Other than that, I think he's now sitting there going, while he's playing golf in Hawaii today, he's sitting here saying, what am I going to say now? I don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't have the, I can't play the, tax the rich thing anymore.
Well, and look, I think your analysis is great. I agree with it completely. Obviously, I'm not a fan of the president's, but I have to say I have been here for, oh my goodness, more longer than I would care to remember. I've seen a lot of presidents of both parties.
Right.
This president is in a category all by himself. We had another example this week, the delicate negotiations going on. The White House tells the media the president wants to address the nation in the middle of the afternoon. Everybody breaks to the White House, and instead of the president sitting in the Oval Office and making some helpful comments, he did a little political rally. I'm not exaggerating. It was a pure political rally. The rhetoric was all nasty attack rhetoric, attacking the Congress and Republicans right in the middle of the negotiations. I've never seen a president do this. I mean, it was breathtaking to me. And it even led guys like Senator John McCain, who is not really known as a big conservative fighter about stuff. McCain went to the Senate floor immediately and said, I have never seen a president be this irresponsible. Mr. President, the campaign's over. You won re-election. Why are you still doing campaign events and spreading these political divisions at a time when our country is facing incredibly huge economic and fiscal problems?